What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Bold Business. I'm your host, Philip Michael, and let's get right to this week's trends. Trend number one, we have to talk about Dogecoin. It was started as a joke based on the meme Doge, which shows a funny-faced Shiba Inu dog with silly phrases around it. Well, this joke coin is now the fourth most popular cryptocurrency with a $50 billion market cap, making it more valuable than Ford. Let's let that simmer for a second. Now, Dogecoin used to trade for a few tenths of a cent, but now it has rallied up to 40 cents, and supporters are trying to take it to $1. Some people think Dogecoin's sudden rise in 2021 could lead to a cryptocurrency bubble just waiting to pop. And of course, its popularity is based mostly on the meme, but could it be a viable currency option? Elon Musk seems to think so. Now, even as I said this, I got a bunch of thoughts that kept coming up when I saw that. Now, it's trading at 40 cents a coin. Yo, that's a penny stock. That's a penny stock that's being pumped. And with a pump, what comes after that? A dump. And to me, it sounds like a dog taking a dump. Honestly, I don't see the fuss. It is artificially enhanced demand based on some silliness. And again, we saw this with GameStop. So a bunch of people buying this, value goes up based on what? Because if you look at the financials, what do we really have? And let's be honest, who's really going to use Dogecoin to perform transactions? Children? Guess what? Parents control the children's money, right? So what else is there? It is one of those gimmicks. And I think that while Bitcoin seems to have, while still nascent, has some viability in terms of its place as a retail hedge against inflation, a digital equivalent of gold, and you have the subsequent secondary cryptocurrencies that are coming around, but this here clearly is a fad. And if you remember, back in December of 2017, Bitcoin dropped tremendously as well, and that's the one that's been around. Even if it's still early, it's been around for the longest. This here was built as a joke. Now, could it, in theory, take off? I'm sure if you watched The Wolf of Wall Street and you saw some of those dog shit products that he was selling when they were doing the pump and dumps, I suppose they could have blown up too, but in reality, it only blew up your finances. Again, could I be wrong? I'm pretty sure I could be, in theory. But from what I see and with the information we have right now, Dogecoin to me still remains a bunch of dog shit. And that's all I got to say about that. Trend number two, Kobe Bryant's estate could be launching its own brand. Since May 2020, the estate has filed 13 separate trademark applications. Some of the latest filings include trademark applications for Play Gigi's Way, Mamba and Mambacita, Baby Mambas, and Mamba League. These are, of course, all references to the late Kobe and Gianna Bryant. The filings show that the trademarks are intended to be used for everything from clothing, gym wear, loungewear, and footwear. And the Bryant estate's deal with Nike just expired, which was everywhere in the news, and they decided not to renew. Some have said that Kobe Bryant was planning to leave Nike in 2020, and following his death, his wife, Vanessa, was extremely unhappy with Nike over the company limiting the availability of his products after his death. Now, one thing about Kobe Bryant is that he was truly a trailblazer in terms of how he approached basketball, but he was a trailblazer in terms of how he approached life and also business. Mind you, you see all these guys now, Kevin Durant, you've seen in tennis, Serena Williams, people are going out there leveraging their notoriety to go out there and invest in businesses to break that, I don't want to call it a curse, but that trend of athletes going broke once they leave their field of profession, right? Which is sports, tennis, basketball, NFL, whatever. Kobe Bryant actually came out, I believe, it's around the same time that he was retiring, but he set up a $100 million VC fund, and they went out there and not only leveraged Kobe Bryant's notoriety, but his know-how, his analytical sense for how he approached basketball, and his obsessiveness approaching business the same way, building a VC brand, going out there making tremendous investments. Now, it only seemed like a natural next step for Kobe to go into apparel. We unfortunately never had the opportunity to see how far he could have gone. One of the things that I said immediately after, this guy was just getting started. When he was getting into the business world, 2016, 17, 18 was really his version when he was just a rookie out of high school, still finding his footing in the NBA. I'm sure it would have gone a long way, and I'm sure his wife, Vanessa, will take his brand to the next level, whatever that next level is. But again, I try not to interject too much opinion, but I personally fully support the movement. And if they can blow up and create their own version of, again, Michael Jordan had Jordan brand under Nike, create his own version of that. It could be the best possible legacy to create for himself and his young daughter that passed away alongside himself in that tragic incident. So overall, big up to Kobe Bryant and his family, and I wish them all the absolute best. Now, speaking of sports, trend number 3, right? I have to talk about the Soccer Super League. Again, my co-founder and my nephew literally just won the Spanish version of the Super Bowl with Leo Messi for FC Barcelona, so he's part of the conversation. I must address it. Now, basically for 3 years, the world's 12 most powerful football, that's what we call it internationally, football, because we play the ball with our feet, but here we call it soccer, clubs were secretly plotting to launch a European soccer league. Huge clubs like Manchester City, Real Madrid, and Juventus wanted to basically just play each other and about 8 other big teams. They even had a firm commitment from JP Morgan for a $4 billion line of credit. Well, 2 days after they announced their intentions to leave the Union of European Football Associations for the Super League, the whole thing was pretty much squashed from the get-go. FIFA, the governing body of global soccer, was against it. European governments were against it, and the other teams who weren't included were against it. They were even told that players who played in the Super League couldn't represent their national teams at the Olympics or World Cup. So what happens to European football and soccer now? I have played soccer since I was a child. My family is deeply involved in the industry, and there's a lot to it that is so different than what you see here in North America. In North America, you have something called the franchise system. You have the same teams that play each other over and over every single year. Once in a while, a new team will come into place, but overall, it's practically the same teams. New players come in, of course, and fill those slots and take those jobs, and then the competition continues, and again, the game evolves, and so on and so forth. Soccer doesn't have that same infrastructure. What it is you have different countries that each have their different leagues. Then they come together and they play the World Cup or the European Championships. Every single year, they have something called the Champions League. This is where the top teams play each other. Everything is controlled by the same governing body that has been linked to enormous levels of corruption, okay? So that's what you're seeing, and a lot of the comments that came out of this whole announcement was that they were making threats. It almost, if you read between the lines, it sounded like some mob stuff, where they say, if you don't do this, we will do this to you, and we will blacklist you, we do this, that, and the other. I think the teams were prepared for that. What they were not prepared for was how deeply committed the fans were to the status quo. And again, anytime you bring something new, you're going to ruffle some feathers, you're going to shake it up a little bit, and people are going to be change resistant. That's just how we wire psychologically. It is what it is. However, it turns out that the blowback was too much to handle for these teams. They said no. Whatever they had on those guys, it was enough to make them cave in and fold, and it seems like the Super League is, DOA before it even started. And to be fair, I never heard anything as well. I actually made a phone call. I was like, what's happening? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, so here we are. Doesn't mean that we will see more of a franchise system for soccer. For the time being, it doesn't appear that we will. But I do think there's a lot of value to that model, to democratizing everything. But again, there's pros and cons to everything. Who the hell knows? What we do know is that model does exist here with Major League Soccer, and it hasn't blown up as big as it has in Europe for whatever reason. It's probably due to supply and demand. That's all I got to say about that.